are looking live at the ISM Raceway, site of today's Bluegreen Vacations 500. Cashing tickets is what it's all about. So let's head to the studio for today's edition of Racers Odds. Here's your host, John Roberts.
And welcome, friends, to yet another edition of Racers Odds. We are your number one source for statistics, information, and simulation when it comes to wagering on the Monster Energy Cup Series. In the ever-changing landscape of sports wagering, NASCAR is moving quickly towards the forefront, and this weekend is a pressure cooker on these teams. There are 8 still alive for the championship. 2 have punched their ticket to the championship race, and we will determine the other 2 spots after what could be a very quick race today. And along the ride with us today, championship crew chief Jeff Hammond for your NASCAR insight, and for everything wagering, our chief handicapper is, of course, the editor of Point Spread Weekly, Steve Makinen, who joins us on a little trip of his own today, which we're glad to see, Steve. So let's dive right into this thing. The Phoenix race, year after year, is notorious for one thing: it can go by in a hurry. Throughout this year, we've seen a lot of clean and green racing. No one wants to be the guy to affect the outcome of the championship. If you're a non-playoff driver, playoff drivers mean business. So, Jeff Hammond, when you're looking at who to wager on this time around, you got to look at a team that's really buttoned up, because they may only have a couple swings at the race car to make it better.
No, you're exactly right. And everything you've done leading into the race today during the practice sessions has got to be with the idea of making some long runs. I know it's going to be probably a race that's going to have its ups and downs, but I really expect early on in the early stages, I think it's going to be somewhat quiet. So long green runs are going to be really have a premium. And the key thing is, when you look at the way everybody qualified today, all the playoff drivers, they showed up. They know they got to bring their A game, so they're getting tuned up. Basically, it's a dress rehearsal for next weekend when you get down to Homestead. No matter who it is, that's what they're trying to get done. Everybody qualified inside the top 10. It's going to be an exciting day.
One of the interesting bits of movements in the odds we've seen so far this weekend, Steve Makinen, is the fact that Denny Hamlin has moved up to a plus 175 wager after opening at plus 350. What goes into a move like that, and is it kind of rare that we see a race winner perhaps, aren't they usually more like plus 250, plus 300, more than plus 175? Someone must think quite a bit of Denny Hamlin's chances today.
Well, it sure seems like it. Jumping on a little bit what Hammond just said there about the long green runs, you have to look at some of the 10-lap averages we saw at happy hour, and Denny Hamlin was first in there, and I have a feeling that has a lot to do with what we're seeing. He's got 5 wins this year. I think there's a lot of people thinking he's got to get to place in the championship 4, and I believe that's the reason the lines have moved as they have towards him.
So when it comes to qualifying, there's our odds to win the race right there. Kyle Busch at plus 250, Denny Hamlin leading the way at plus 175. Couple of longer shots for you there. Drivers clearly with a chance to win in this thing. But when you look at one of the guys that's one of the favorites, of course, every time we go to the racetrack, is Kyle Busch. He will start on the pole position. And Jeff Hammond, that's a huge advantage here at a track like this, where track position is king.
Well, what's more important also is that number 1 pit stall. He has the opportunity and luxury and it got a fast pit crew to begin with, so he could easily, if he can get out front, he can stay out front when they come down pit road. So it's one of those big pluses in his situation. He's just trying to break basically, I don't want to call it a losing streak, but I definitely will call it a drought. He's gone 20 races a day, would be number 21, and he'd like to be able to get a little momentum going into Homestead. So what a better place to do this than Phoenix or IMS. He did win here in the spring. He's been solid here many, many times. So this could wind up being the day that we get to see him finally reward people who believe in him over the last basically 2 months, 3 months, get a little bit of kind of like payback.
So it might not be realistic, but it is for sure possible that any of these 8 drivers still alive could be our champion at the end of the weekend. There is only one driver, however, that cannot make it in by points, that, of course, being Chase Elliott. Now, in the simulation, you'll see where he stands in a moment, but also Chase himself and his team has embraced the fact that that's the only way they can get into the championship 4 is to go out there and win.
Being put in that position was good experience, and whether you are in that position where you have to win now or 3 weeks ago, or if you make it to Homestead, you're going to be in that position down there. So I just think being comfortable with that is a necessity with the way this is, and there is no cruising and pointsing your way through at this point. When your back's up against the wall, you have to go perform, and I just think that the better you feel about that situation, the more you embrace it, the better off you'll be. So we're, as a team, I think we've, not that we have choice, but we've definitely embraced it. We embraced it at Kansas, and I'm really looking forward to the weekend. I'm not, really concerned over it or anything. We're just going to go and do our thing, have fun, and try to put ourselves in a position to win.
And there is a lot riding on the shoulders of that young man, because not only is he Hendrick Motorsports' only hope for getting in the championship four, but at the same time, he's one of Chevrolet's hopes that are somewhat long shots going into this thing. So, Steve Makinen, when you look at Chase Elliott, opened up at 12-1, but bet down to 14-1. What's your overall impression on Chase this weekend?
Well, I certainly like it because he's the top of my simulation for this race. He's been really good at Phoenix historically. He's obviously in a situation, if you want to call it the must win. I typically don't believe in that as a motivating factor, but I mean he's got the car underneath him to win in this must win scenario. So his odds look pretty favorable at 14-1. A good chance to maybe score a real long shot underdog here.
All right, absolutely. He could do that, because if he was able to do that, Jeff Hammond, this would upset that apple cart, so to speak. Of the four drivers that are in right now, the ones that are to the good are some you expect there. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, among these drivers that are trying to make their way in. Ryan Blaney as well. All those guys have a scenario where they could make it in by virtue of points. But if one of those drivers were to win, that puts Kyle Busch, Jeff, and Joey Logano at a great deficit.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it will be a dogfight between those two guys as far as Joey and Kyle are concerned, because they know what's at stake, and they do realize and respect Chase Elliott. He's been able to do it several times. You can't ever underestimate Kyle Larson. So, when you start looking at those factors of the guys that are on the outside looking in, they're the ones that are going for broke, and they're going to push the envelope, and they're not going to let you, even if you're leading the race, like Kyle Busch. If he's leading the race early on and these guys get up there to him, they're not going to let him sit there and just ride. They're going to put pressure on him, try to force him to make a mistake, because they know he is vulnerable. And if they can't win, if he has a bad day, they may open a door for somebody like Ryan Blaney.
All right, race fans, want to remind you that at the bottom of your screen, we are scrolling the individual odds for drivers to win at Phoenix, and also we have the countdown to green going on there as well. Now, good news for the people at Phoenix Raceway, at ISM Raceway, rather, is the fact that the grandstand is sold out for this race. It's going to be a very exciting one. Good weather forecast this weekend. So let's check in trackside now with Pat Patterson.
Well, good afternoon, Johnny and Jeff, and welcome to ISM Raceway in Phoenix, Arizona, where today, obviously, we all know what's at stake with, we fill in the blanks, the two guys that will chase the championship next weekend and will join Martin Truex Jr. and Kevin Harvick. That's what it's all about today. It's also all about who might be the spoilers today at this very flat, tricky 1 mile racetrack. There is no question that when it comes to fast, we got to talk about the Joe Gibbs cars and what they're capable of today. Kyle Busch starts on the pole. We knew he was going to be good at this racetrack. Very successful and hard to bet against him today. Also hard to bet against Denny Hamlin today. We know how badly he needs it to join Martin Truex Jr. down at Homestead Miami Speedway next weekend. So keep your eye on Denny Hamlin today. And of course, Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney are in a must-win situation today. So we got a lot of drivers that are very fast. And one of the things for sure, when it comes to this racetrack, it's a fast race in terms of the time and the amount of time it takes to run this race. So everybody's going to get after it really, really fast. Stage points for those guys that are on the outside looking in don't mean that much today. It's going to be fun. It really is here in Phoenix.
Okay, Pat, you've been there all weekend. You've got an opportunity to watch the trucks race as well as the Xfinity Series. Anybody talking about how the PJ1 is performing out there? Will it be a factor today?
Yeah, guys, once again, NASCAR and the racetrack have added the traction compound PJ1 to the racetrack, and quite frankly, didn't see much out of it in terms of changing the complex of either the Gander Outdoors Truck Series race or the Xfinity Series race. and I don't know that I can expect that much out of it today. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was suggesting they move it down another 5 or 6 feet, and they did not do that. There was no more traction compound put down yesterday. So what you got is what you got, and it should be a fun and really fast race as we get ready to do business today here in the Valley of the Sun. Sit back and relax, guys. This is going to be a good one.
Pat, no question about that, guys. Let's get to our host picks right now, our best bets of the week. We're going to start out with Steve Makinen. Steve, what's your top pick this week?
My top pick this week, I'm going to be going with a matchup of Eric Almirola against William Byron. I like what I've seen from Almirola lately. He's been a guy who usually ends the season with some momentum. He seemed to do that last week. He's actually coming off what would be considered his best career race ever last week at Texas in terms of driver rating. I think he's got some momentum. I like how he runs at Phoenix. I think he's a good bet here against Byron.
All right, so Steve's got Eric Almirola. Jeff Hammond, what do you say?
I'm going to do what I did last week, folks. So last week I took an early odds situation with Kevin Harvick, came out on top today. I'm also going to go back. This time I'm going to pick a guy to win it. A long shot, 30-1, Joey Logano. He's won here before in 2016, starting second today up alongside Kyle Busch. But the key thing to me is he's been good in the long runs. He's been good in all the practices. So I feel like this this 22 car is definitely going to be a guy you got to worry about and got to watch for. He knows what's at stake, and he knows that winning solves everything for him.
Yeah, certainly does, and that's one of the favorites to win. Now, we're going to go ahead here and give up the 160 when it comes to a very interesting matchup. Now, Ryan Newman, when he fires the engine today, will become the all-time leader in races run at Phoenix. Recently, though, he has not finished on the lead lap like he used to with his 2 wins. So this matchup we have, Matt DiBenedetto, this is his kind of racetrack. I'm going to go ahead and give up the 160 right now because we really feel like with the way Matt DiBenedetto has started out this week, top 5 in the first practice, top 10 in the second practice, and he's number 2 on the chart when it comes to best 10-lap average. So we like this one, even giving up the 160 with Matt DiBenedetto as he winds up what's been somewhat of a career year. 2 more to go for him, not a championship in sight, but nonetheless, he could definitely open some eyes. So let's grab us a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to take a close look at Steve Makinen's simulation, tell you who's on top, and tell you what that might mean for your wagering today in NASCAR. Stay with us, everybody. This is Racer's Odds.
Hi, this is Doug Rice of the Performance Racing Network. Whenever the PRN crew heads to Las Vegas, we always stay at the South Point Hotel and Casino. You know, it's our home away from home. The South Point features great restaurants, free parking, and they go out of their way to make race fans feel welcome. So when you make your plans to visit Vegas and attend the South Point 400, it just makes sense to book into the South Point. The South Point also offers fantastic room and race ticket packages. Make your reservations now at southpointcasino.com.
A numbers game with Gil Alexander. Ladies and gentlemen, our pleasure to have Jeremy Piven in studio.
I'm really good friends with Julian Edelman. He and I are very similar size and almost identical, except he's an elite athlete and I'm not. Other than that, everything lines
Same
up.
person.
Yeah, I run the same routes.
Every time we see Julian Edelman on Sunday, we'll be thinking of you.
There you go.
A numbers game with Gil Alexander. Weekdays from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. VSiN.com and Sirius XM 204. VSiN, the news you need to win.
Attention business owners. We know that owning a business means getting things done right now. So if your right now list includes a new building, call the Right Now Company. General Steel. We can design a building for your business quickly and save you thousands of dollars. That's right, thousands. You may think General Steel only builds large projects or that you can't afford General Steel quality. Well, check these prices. How about a 40 by 60 foot building for under $22,000? Or even a 50 by 100 for under $35,000? That's right, a 5,000 square foot building for under $35,000. And these buildings all have General Steel quality. Best of all, you can still order a building and have it delivered in time to build this year. How's that for right now? So if your right now list includes a new building, call the Right Now Company, General Steel.
800-398-8309, 800-398-8309, 800-398-8309. That's 800-398-8309.
It's more Racer's Odds.
And welcome back, everybody. John Roberts, Jeff Hammond, Steve Makinen with you here on this edition of Racers Odds. We head to the desert, the Phoenix Raceway, now known as ISM Raceway, and one of the crown jewels also of the desert, but also of NASCAR. $176 million worth of renovation went into this racetrack, and it shows. But right now, we're going to see how much money we can possibly make when it comes to Steve Makinen's simulation. You know, Chase Elliott on several different handicapping areas, Steve, has been put down as at least second to Kyle Busch. But on your simulation, he came out on top. That's got to be good news for fans of his that are considering wagering on him as somewhat of a long shot, but nonetheless, a very realistic winner today.
Well, he was the original on Tuesday, the original simulation projected winner. Now, I got Chase Elliott up there now. Elliott, Harvick, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex as the top four. Then Hamlin, Logano, Blaney, or Hamlin, Larson, Blaney, Logano. Now, the interesting thing about that is the top 8 guys are all playoff guys. So I don't think that's a coincidence in this scenario, but that's just the way it turned out here. Now, the interesting thing about the simulations I've run in the past here at Phoenix, if you look back at the last 5 of them, 13 of the last 15 top 5 guys were in my top 7 in my simulation. So if you're in the top 7, there's a good chance you're going to run up front in this race today. So keeping that in mind as you handicap today's event.
So, Steve, what's the grade? What's the grade here?
Give it a C. Unfortunately, there's been, even like last year, there's been 29 Ds here in the last race, 11 of them last year by accident. So some things can happen here. It gets to be an interesting race. There's a series of accidents.
Having a little bit of trouble with Steve there. So, Jeff Hammond, what is your initial feeling on Chase Elliott being one of the favorites here by way of odds makers, but also in Steve's simulation? It certainly warrants one of the guys that could potentially win here, but also one of the guys that could really help you cash in if you have a bet on him.
Well, he's exactly right. And the reason why he keeps looking at the way these numbers come out, he's been really good at this racetrack since he showed up here. And at the same time, go back even when he was in Xfinity cars, he ran well at this racetrack. So it's a matter of when you start giving him credit for what? Stepping up whenever he's got his back against the wall, too. He's been able to do that a couple times this year. And that shows a lot about, the character, not only of the driver and him being able to handle the pressure, but it also shows a lot about, Hendrick Motorsports as a whole, is that when they're in a hole, they figure out a way to dig out of it. And, that's the cool thing about it. He does come in here. A lot of the stuff that's happened has not been his fault. But the key thing is they're still bringing fast race cars, and they're showing that this weekend that, once again, they're in a position to take advantage of his talent and their speed, not only on the racetrack, but also their consistency on pit road.
So from 12-1 to 14-1, that's what Chase Elliott, the move he has made so far this week. But one of the biggest movers for sure, Jeff, has been a guy that on the handicapping rankings and also on Steve Makinen's simulation in Denny Hamlin finds himself at a 10-1 odds to win on Steve's simulation at a number 5, but also on some of the other rankings in the handicap areas. We got Denny Hamlin as a 5th on this list, 3rd, 2nd, and even 9th on one list. So there's got to be something going on, whether it's a very large wager on one side of Denny Hamlin's benefit, or people just see the speed and the hunger in this driver that finds himself below the cut line in a season where it would be a darn shame if he were to leave 5 victories on the table. He's won 5 times so far this season, and he would not make the championship 4. Would be a shame, but he still is one of the guys on the below the cut line, Jeff, but one of the guys who has to race his way in today.
Yeah, he understands right now he is in that same scenario where a week ago he lost 44 points at Texas, and that right there would have ruined everybody's season if it hadn't been he had something kind of stockpile, folks. That's we talked so much about the success they had early on during the year and where they've been able to kind of continue it throughout the entire season. They had a stockpile of points to kind of help protect them a little bit. So he finds himself, yes, below the cut line, but currently in a manageable position. I mean, if he could have, a good first 2 stages and Joey Logano has a little bit of problems at all, he's going to be all over him in that final stage, and that's going to be the key thing, I think, for him to be able to race his way in. if he has to go out and win a race, this organization has shown how good it's been all year long. He's got the 5 wins, and I think he has the possibility, and somebody also believes in him, at least from the Vegas side of it, that he can get it done. And so I'm not going to say it's going to be impossible, but it's going to be a challenge. But he, attitude-wise, is the key thing, I think, here. He's got the kind of attitude this year that I think will allow him to come back from this deficit and even point his way in if he doesn't wind up, winning the race.
So, Steve Makinen, one more time on Denny Hamlin. We've talked a lot about him so far, and chances are a lot of people are going to be talking about him today. But opening up at plus 350 and then currently being plus 175. Now, you may expect that kind of movement, perhaps. I mean, yes, he is starting third, but there's a couple good drivers in front of him. That's quite a bit of movement, isn't it?
It certainly is. And again, it looks like everything came down to those 10-lap averages as you look at these line moves. Somebody truly believes there's going to be some longer green flag runs. These guys that had the 10-lap average, the leaders up there are going to have a chance to run up front. However, I think it may be an overstatement on these lines here, because if you look at Hamlin, he has 5 finishes of 20th or worse this season. His average finish the next week is only 12th. And the interesting thing, his driver rating has been about an 80 in those races, which equates to about a 17th place. So he hasn't exactly bounced back well when he struggled the week before.
Yeah, so also another thing about Denny, when you look at his 10-lap average, those 10 laps were a little bit later in a run. And the reason I think people are looking at the green flag runs a little bit more is the fact that, first of all, the non-playoff drivers are probably going to be on their best behavior. And then the playoff drivers, they're probably going to be looking out as well. And also, it's kind of been the rule this season so far that we've seen clean and green racing. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the head-to-head matchups and a couple in particular that are very interesting and perhaps could be a place to cash a ticket at the end of today. So stay with us. This is Racer's Odds.
Hi, this is Doug Rice of the Performance Racing Network. Whenever the PRN crew heads to Las Vegas, we always stay at the South Point Hotel and Casino. You know, it's our home away from home. The South Point features great restaurants, free parking, and they go out of their way to make race fans feel welcome. So when you make your plans to visit Vegas and attend the South Point 400, it just makes sense to book into the South Point. The South Point also offers fantastic room and race ticket packages. Make your reservations now at southpointcasino.com.
VSiN is the Vegas Stats and Information Network. VSiN is analysis that's always on the money.
The total on this game, 8 flat.
VSiN is the home of legendary broadcaster Brent Musburger.
I do want to talk about the next big thing in Las Vegas.
VSiN is your all-access pass behind the counter of a Las Vegas sportsbook.
Trends don't pay the rent. They're looking at the number.
VSiN, what are the odds? Find out on Sirius XM Channel 204.
Medicare rules are confusing. They should be. There are over 130,000 pages of regulations. There's Part A through D, Medicare Advantage, and Medigap. According to the CMS, there are government programs available that can help you pay for your medical expenses. Choosing the right Medicare plan is a really big deal. The wrong choice can cost you a lot of money, and the right choice can put more money in your pocket. Call one of our licensed representatives today. At 65 Plus Medicare, our free service can show you a plan that will maximize your Medicare benefits, ensure you are taking advantage of all available government assistance programs, and save you money. Call now.
800-763-4829. 800-763-4829. 800-763-4829. That's 800-763-4829.
Not all benefits listed may be available on all plans or in a single benefit package. Enrollment in the prescribed plan type may be limited to certain times of the year unless you qualify for a special enrollment period. No obligation to enroll.
We're back with more Racer's Odds.
And welcome back, everybody, to Racer's Odds. This is the second to last race of the season. That means after today, we will know which 4 drivers will have a shot at one of the biggest prizes in all of racing. That, of course, being the Monster Energy NASCAR Series Cup. That will be decided at Homestead, Miami this weekend, though. At Phoenix, things can go by in a hurry, and we find some really interesting matchups for race fans to wager on. So let's take a look at our first group of matchups right away. And here is one of the more interesting ones we found so far this week. When this matchup number 1, Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, opened up, Kyle Busch was the favorite at minus 140. Denny Hamlin, the underdog, at plus 120. Then things shifted greatly despite the fact that Kyle Busch is on the pole. Currently, we find that matchup with Kyle Busch as the dog at plus 115, and all perhaps goes back to what Steve Makinen was talking about a second ago in the 10-lap averages, Denny Hamlin being in the first spot there, Kyle Busch being in the 8th spot there on that average. But nonetheless, with the pole position, Kyle Busch feels very confident.
It's obviously a really good starting spot for us, and track position is a big deal here. And obviously number one pit selection as well too. So lots of things that can certainly help us to fire off here to start the race with. But you know, those guys behind us we know are going to be awfully hungry as well too. And we'll just have to see how the race kind of plays out. But puts us in the best possible spot to start off, and got 312 laps to figure it out.
Yeah, 312 laps. That can go by in a big hurry. But Steve Makinen, I looked at this one as a potential favorite, especially with the pole sitter and a driver like Kyle Busch being an underdog. What do you think about this matchup? It seems to me like it's pretty interesting.
Curious line move. It's dramatic, especially in terms of both of these guys have the stakes that they do. Busch is certainly capable of winning this race. When you look at like maybe 8 weeks ago, which races can Busch win in the playoffs? You're probably thinking Phoenix right off the bat. That's number one. So good track for him. Very curious line move, in my opinion.
Okay, so it's interesting that Kyle Busch was fastest in first practice session, and also he was 8th on that best consecutive 10-lap averages in that practice as well. So I'm kind of looking at that one as a pretty good one as well. And as we take a look at some of the other matchups in this first set, Jeff Hammond, anybody stick out to you in this one besides Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin as the first one?
No, not really. I mean, you take a look, and I think it's a little bit peculiar when you get down here that you got Kevin Harvick so far once again below Kyle Busch with the success that he's got at this racetrack. I mean, the guy's won here 9 times, and I know Kyle is good here, but a little bit like last week. I mean, I just see the odds makers are getting way out over the end. Their tip of their skis, I like to say right now, with giving the kind of love that they're giving Kevin, and at the same time, you know, putting Kyle so far down. I mean, they're a whole lot more even in my book. That's what I guess I'm trying to say.
So one thing about Kevin Harvick at this racetrack, he leads all drivers with those 9 victories, but he got one of the victories and then went on to sweep the season in 2006. Then you got to wait another 6 years before Harvick was able to win again. But in that 6 years, that came after the track reconfiguration. So Steve Makinen, Kevin Harvick has adapted, and I'm surprised he's not getting just a little bit more love from odds makers going into this one.
Yeah, I don't think you can go back. Obviously, you don't want to look back at 2006, 2012, that type of thing. But he's been good here recently. There's no reason to think he's not going to be a contender today. I think maybe there's a little bit of overreaction from him winning last week, maybe thinking he doesn't have the hunger to get a victory here today. But I certainly wouldn't discount that from him.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear, Kevin. One thing that we heard Kevin talk about earlier was he was already talking about some simulation at this racetrack, looking forward to this track being where the championship is going to be determined. So I think that may have played a factor into people thinking, again, Steve, like you said, and Jeff, hunger is a big factor here, and he knows he's got to be focused on Homestead. You have to be.
You know, you got to understand right now, that's next week. You know, you can say what you want to. You can't learn a thing out here at Phoenix that you're going to take to Homestead. Talked to several crew chiefs during the past week. The Homestead cars are just about finalized. These other cars, just like Phoenix and Texas, that's been a big focus on, you know, for the drivers getting these final 2 races, and particularly Texas when it comes to somebody like Kevin. He wasn't worried about Phoenix. He knew how good he was at Phoenix, but he felt like if I can get my job done at Texas, it's going to make life a whole lot easier. And right now, Kevin Harvick and Rodney Childers, they're opportunists. They're going to take the opportunity of a racetrack where this guy is so good at, and they're going to try to parlay it into some more momentum. So I don't look for these guys to be looking for one thing and one thing only. How do I get to victory lane? Same thing for Martin Truex Jr. These guys are not playing. They're not experimenting. They're racing. So I don't like hearing anybody say that somebody's got another focus on a track that they're not even at right now. I don't think that's going to happen.
Also, a relaxed Kevin Harvick can sometimes be a very dangerous Kevin Harvick as well. So let's look at the hunger of these drivers here coming up in matchups number 2. Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, these are drivers that are not in must-win situations. There are scenarios in which they could points their way in, but then again, the hunger factor could have these guys really talking about winning or else, because they have to have too much help from somebody else. Steve Makinen, is it odd Kyle Larson being a plus 120 to Ryan Blaney with his success at running in high grooves and what he's started out with so far this weekend?
Well, I actually wanted to hear a little more, and Pat kind of told us it didn't have much of an impact to PJ1, but he has been good at these tracks where they lay down that PJ1 on the outsides. He gets those runs outside, and I think there's a good chance with this matchup with Blaney. Blaney's been good in those too, so I'm going to avoid that one. But I actually believe both of those guys are guys who could, we called it turn over the apple cart today with wins here. Blaney was fast in 10 laps as well. I don't want to fade him. In fact, I was looking for him in some other matchups. I couldn't find anything I really liked, but I wouldn't discount both of those guys' chances to win today.
Yeah, a very difficult one, as you said, Steve, because Ryan Blaney's third on the best 10 consecutive lap average list. Kyle Larson is 17. Brad Keselowski, always a driver to take a look at. He's an underdog to Ryan Blaney. Larson and Keselowski, he's an underdog to Larson as well. And Steve, there is also a guy you're pretty high on for a lot of races recently in Eric Jones.
Yeah, Eric Jones has got a tough matchup here with Joey Logano. I know that's where you went with yours. You like Logano's chances here, so I also, or I'm sorry, that was Mr. Hammond that did, but I actually like Jones here in the matchup against Kurt Busch. I think there's a good value in that one. He's minus 150. You're gonna have to pay a little bit of a price for it, but Jones has been pretty solid at Phoenix.
Jeff, you going with any of these matchups, or are you staying away?
I'm a little bit like Steve when it comes into the Ryan Blaney scenario right there. I think Ryan is starting to come into his own, and he realizes what's up for grabs today. And he did sit on the pole out here in the spring, and he did, win some stages. And right now, he can point his way in. He's still got, got to have some, solid finishes. So I think he's the kind of kid I'm talking about, understanding the circumstances. He's going to be putting his full-out effort when it comes to when they drop the green flag. And you got to realize all the playoff drivers are up there inside the top 10. So it's like everybody's got a shot. Dropping the green flag is going to be important as far as trying to get stage wins or stage points. And I think Ryan's going to put a lot of pressure on whoever he's racing right now for that reason.
All right, matchups number 3. We get a lot of non-playoff contenders here, but nonetheless some very interesting matchups that have piqued our interest here. Clint Bowyer and Eric Almirola. I know it's Steve Makinen. It's another Almirola matchup that you like, but what about Almirola against Clint Bowyer? This one's intriguing.
Yeah, I actually debated these two very, very closely. Almirola is the dog in the one against Bowyer. However, Bowyer had some good practice runs here, so I'm a little less inclined to go that way. I like Almirola against Byron. Byron's been decent at Phoenix, not great. And my simulator actually calls for an 11th for Almirola, 15th for Byron, and a pretty good advantage there. I actually had him losing to Bowyer, so that's why I went with Almirola against Byron.
So Ryan Newman has a ton of experience and 2 wins at this racetrack, but the performance hasn't been there lately. I know there's no direct comparison to some of the other short tracks or shorter tracks that DiBenedetto has done so well on this year, but it just seems like he's off to such a good start this weekend, Hammond, that I really think my money's going on DiBenedetto over Newman, even giving up minus 160.
I mean, I can't. It's hard to argue with you right there because he has been a surprise this weekend. How strong he's been. So, yeah, I can understand why you want to stay that way.
All right, so a lot to be proven by these drivers that are outside of the playoffs. There's no reason why one of them could not win this race, but chances are, and it normally happens, that we do see a playoff driver winning one of the races. Therefore, we would have a scenario where 3 drivers in the championship, 4 are in by virtue of a win, and therefore only 1 will make it in by points. If that is the case, if not, we'll have 2 drivers that'll be fighting for points and probably looking back at a lot of different things over the course of these 312 laps at Phoenix. Stay with us, everybody. This is Racers Odds. When we come back, we will dive into some of the group matchups, and we'll find you some value there. They're difficult this week, but there is value. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Doug Rice of the Performance Racing Network. Whenever the PRN crew heads to Las Vegas, we always stay at the South Point Hotel and Casino. You know, it's our home away from home. The South Point features great restaurants, free parking, and they go out of their way to make race fans feel welcome. So when you make your plans to visit Vegas and attend the South Point 400, it just makes sense to book into the South Point. The South Point also offers fantastic room and race ticket packages. Make your reservations now at southpointcasino.com.
As states have begun the legalization of sports gambling, the entire sports landscape is changing.
I think we're going to see more and more states fall in line, and this gets legalized across probably all 50 states.
And so is the way you listen to Sports Talk Radio. I'm Brent Musburger, and on the Vegas Stats and Information Network, we follow the money and the games. It's sports talk you can bet on. So check out VSiN. Odds are you're going to like what you hear on Channel 204 and streaming on your phone or at home on SiriusXM connected devices and speakers.
It's happening to you every night. One snores, and the other can't sleep. It seems like there's no end to it. But now there's a quick and easy-to-use solution, a natural solution. Snore Stop. Try it risk-free today. Snore Stop was created and tested by a team of physicians and has been helping couples sleep for over 20 years. It is the #1 selling anti-snoring medicine in the U.S. Snore Stop sprays or tablets are now available nationwide. All you have to do is call. It's time to try Snore Stop and make every night a better night for both of you. Don't wait. Try Snore Stop, the #1 selling anti-snoring medicine in the U.S. spray or tablets. Call right now for your risk-free trial offer. 800-984-0965. 800-984-0965. 800-984-0965. That's 800-984-0965.
It's more Racers Odds.
And welcome back to Racers Odds, everyone. This is your #1 source for the news, stats, and information you need to make the wise wagers on NASCAR's top series. Now, each week we take a look at individual odds, and you see those scrolling at the bottom of your screen. Of course, the star means that is a playoff driver. We also have a countdown clock to the green flag there for you as well. And we also take a look at group wagering. This is a group of 4 drivers. Your driver would have to finish above the other 3 in order for you to cash a ticket. So as we look at Group A, this is the group of drivers you expect to see running up front among the favorites. Denny Hamlin, again, has just bet way up over the course of the week and finds himself at plus 150. Simply put, for every dollar you put down on Denny Hamlin, you're going to get $1.50 back if he finishes ahead of Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, and Kevin Harvick. So in a quick race, there's concern about getting around the other cars on the racetrack, and Kyle Busch is looking at that as he heads into Phoenix.
Yeah, no question. Traffic's a big deal. We saw it yesterday in practice. There were times where I kind of get stuck behind a couple guys I was following. So, Logano fired off practice right behind us in the first session and was really good and caught up to us and got by us. So, he starts right there with us. But I think our car is way better than it was when we unloaded. So we made some good adjustments through practice and got the M&M's Camry hopefully tuned up.
And so Steve Makinen, if you look at this group, of course, Kyle Busch, you may consider him because he is on the top of the starting grid, but nonetheless, a 9-time winner here. Kevin Harvick going up plus 400, opened up at plus 290. An interesting shift for a guy who's had so much success at this racetrack.
Stunning. I'm telling you that. We've talked about this before on the show. We don't know why that line moved on Hamlin. We know the 10-lap average thing, but this may come from an overzealous bettor. Maybe it's Denny Hamlin's sibling or something. You have no idea why this line moved as is. You wonder if Kevin Harvick even knows some of these odds and stuff. If he was told, hey, you're a plus 400 to these guys here, would that be a motivating factor for him? So very interesting. Harvick's the number 2 on my simulator, higher than any of those other 3 guys, and there's definitely value there.
Yeah, I believe so as well. Jeff Hammond, if I'm going on this one, I like Harvick a lot in this group.
I think you got to. I mean, I know there's a lot of people believing right now that, that Kyle Busch is going to be the man once again like he was in the spring, but I really feel like that this racetrack, it lends itself to his style of driving. I'm talking about Kevin Harvick. And now that we know that the PJ1 is not really factoring in a whole lot to allow that outside groove to work, I've seen the guys who've won these races so far this weekend talking about in the Gander Outdoor Truck Series with Stuart Friesen, and then yesterday during the Xfinity race, everybody's running the bottom groove, and that's where Kevin Harvick really excels.
So let's move on to Group B now. We have Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, and Kyle Larson as your playoff contenders in there, with Brad Keselowski recently eliminated from playoff contention. Steve Makinen, you cautioned us not too long ago when we were looking at a group, saying, okay, if we're going to take Chase Elliott at plus 220 to win this group, we may as well go ahead and bet on him to win the race at 14-1. But in this situation, though, I believe Chase Elliott could finish ahead of these three guys, but yet not win the race. This might not apply there.
True. You got three, or the upper group there. Group A had, if you want to call them the power drivers, in it. So Elliott could finish fifth and beat all these guys, but still not win the race. So I agree with your assessment on that.
All right, let's move on to Group C, and we see Eric Jones, Joey Logano, Kurt Busch, and Clint Boyer in this one. Guys, I don't know really what to say on this one. I'm not too sure about this group.
It ought to be about the same thing you said a moment ago. I can't believe it. Joey Logano is down here in Group C against these guys. I mean, I think with his situation, he's going to run extremely hard. And, you know, I told you before, I got him picked to even win the race. But against these other three competitors, I think that he's going to outrun them today no matter what, whether he wins or not. So, I like this Group C for me.
All right, so Steve Makinen on this group, yeah, Joey Logano would only get you currently 180s plus 180 as we go into this thing. Does this group intrigue you?
I agree, though, with Jeff's on 20-1. There's some value there. That's 10 times what you're getting on this bet. So plus 180 is decent. I think he's up against he's obviously up against three other non-playoff drivers, so that's clearly an advantage for him. He's clearly Penske's going to be trying to get Blaney and Logano as many points and as good of a chance as a victory as they can, but the rest of these three guys don't have that motivation.
All right, so listening to Steve earlier in the program as we move on to Group D, we know where he's going to go on this one, at least we think. Jeff Hammond, Eric Almirola as the favorite in this group at plus 195. What do you think, Jeff?
Again, I think he's the obvious pick. I think he's going to have a pretty solid run, and as Steve keeps pointing out, for whatever reason, Eric figures out a way to kind of get everything and starts tightening everything up over the course of the end of the year. And he usually finishes pretty strong. So I think today will be no different.
All right, let's move on to Group E. And as we said before, Ryan Newman had as many starts at this racetrack before today as Jeff Gordon and Mark Martin. Now, when he fires the engine today, he'll be the all-time leader in starts at Phoenix. But then again, when he won was a long time ago. He had a long streak of getting the pole position at Phoenix, but now finds himself plus 350. Matt DiBenedetto moved over in this one because of what he had go on in the beginning of the weekend with the top 10, with a 10-lap average and also practice qualifying, the two practice sessions, finds himself going from plus 240 to minus 110. Steve Makinen, I think that's a move that we look at and we say, okay, we understand that because of what he's done so far this weekend.
I understand it, but it scares the bejesus out of me.
Really? Really does.
You know, minus 110 for Matt Benedetto here. I have him as number 29 on my ISM track ratings here. So that's below all three of those other guys. We talk about Ryan Newman winning. That was 2017. That's a long time ago. But he had 12th, 11th, and 11th in his last three races here. Is DiBenedetto going to get a top 10 here today? I don't know.
Yeah, he was the biggest mover up, but just to to make sure we clarify that we are paying attention to you, Steve, and my matchup that I have with Matt DiBenedetto, not this group, but in the matchup, he fares much better in the simulation than he does in Ryan Newman. So that's why we're going with him.
He
there.
sure does. But
yes, I'm not scaring you
minus
there.
Minus 110 in a group with DiBenedetto. That's
we're scaring you there.
Unheard of country, I guess.
All right, so guys, one more group to take a look at. And again, sometimes when these, I don't want to call them lower tier drivers, but some of the drivers that have a little bit less of a rating at a particular racetrack, sometimes there can be some value in this one. Hammond, it's Hemrick, Wallace, Ty Dillon, and Ryan Preece. In these matchups recently, it seems as if Ryan Preece this season on the whole has outperformed these things, but that's not necessarily to say what's going to go on this weekend.
No, and the thing is, when you're matching up against these guys right now, Bubba Wallace is, coming off a pretty disappointing weekend at Texas. Now he's been fined $50,000. Daniel Hemrick's still looking for a ride. and with Ryan Priest, I don't know which guy's going to show up here today. So, I mean, to me, I don't see anything, that it really stimulates me about this bottom group right here. It's almost like a coin toss. So, I mean, you have to flip the coin about 3 times to figure out which one you want to go with. But I don't, Steve. I don't know about you. This group doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, ironically, these guys are 24, 25, 26, and 27 on my simulation. So flip the coin's probably a good way to look at it.
Yeah, and in that case, there's normally in these matchups, sometimes you can rule out a couple drivers that you're not too high on, then you pick between the other two. In this situation, I think one of the better groups that we've found, maybe in a while, is that Group B with Chase Elliott. So let's take a look at individual drivers right now, individual drivers and what their odds are to win this race. Of course, again, the plus 175, that means odds makers right now are pretty certain on this one, only to give up plus 175 when Kyle Busch has that pole position. Then you go all the way up to plus 600, plus 800 for a 9-time winner. And again, these are intriguing moves, Steve. But then again, we can understand some of them.
Yeah, you can understand some of them. I look at that top group there, and I don't see a whole lot of value if you're looking for value wagers. I think the value is more on where we're talking here with the Blaney's, the Logano's, maybe even a Larson, and certainly Chase Elliott 14-1 on top of my simulation.
Yeah, so that was one reason, Steve. Even before looking deep into the simulation, there was a lot of other signs, a lot of other things that I felt that maybe even that would be one of those winners to pick. I'm not as brave as Jeff Hammond to go out on a limb like that, but in this case, I think there could be tremendous value at 12-1 for Chase Elliott and what's on the line right here. So when it comes to winners, Jeff Hammond, where do you find the value?
I told you early on. I mean, when I saw 30-1 early on Tuesday when these odds came out, I was like, really a former winner? And I really felt like they're going to come in here. Here's another organization that starts to rally at the end of the year, and he wants to go back to Homestead. I think that's one thing we're not giving enough credit to is how hungry he and Todd Gordon are to go back to Homestead and defend their championship. So I think that's another reason why I feel like when I saw that 30-1, you got to put a little money on it because I think he could possibly pull through and make something really surprising happen.
Yeah, and just to remind the wagerers out there, it's what the odds are when you place your bet, not where they finish up throughout the weekend. So that's where Hammond cashed in last week. Mm-hmm. He got Harvick earlier in the week. Then he goes out and is the favorite to win. He moved up, but then Hammond still had him at that lower mark. And this time around at 30-1, Joey Logano seems like a tremendous value.
It's only down to 16-1. I mean, still,
yeah.
For current odds, I mean, that's still not a bad investment because he's now showing qualified well, top 10 as far as the top 10 lap averages currently, like Steve's been looking at. And so I still feel like that he's got a legitimate shot to be a guy you can't rule out.
So Steve Makinen, when you look at the odds to win the championship,
you on the leaderboard today, John. If we if he gets this 30-1 winner,
exactly. I know we're going to be in trouble for him, but he's buying around. I'm telling you that much. If he does cash in on that ticket, but Steve, when you look at championship odds, when we first started the playoffs, they're pretty difficult to really figure out. But now as we get closer and closer, we see, of course, now right now the odds are going to be your Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. They're going to be greatly affected by the fact that they're already in at plus 250. But then you got Chase Elliott, some long shots there. Ryan Blaney, 60-1, 50-1. Not moving too much throughout the week, but still a little bit of movement.
We covered so much last week at Texas. I didn't actually get a chance to. I actually placed my own bet here on Kevin Harvick last week. He was 7-1 odds to win the championship, and I thought there was no way he wasn't getting through Phoenix and Texas and getting to Homestead with a chance to win. So I'm holding a 7-1 ticket here with him for next week already. So I got my value on the championship. I don't see any reason to go other way, any other place.
Yeah, so Steve, a ticket I'm holding right now, and I'm not holding on to all that much hope on it right now, though, is Chase Elliott. Got him at, odds way down there, 50-1 to win the championship as well. So we'll see if we can cash in on that one as well. So here's the way it lines up. Right now, any of the 8 drivers that are still in the playoffs right now are eligible. They could potentially win the championship. Martin Truex Jr. and Kevin Harvick, they are already in that championship 4. Thus, their odds to win the championship at plus 250 apiece. Then all kinds of stuff can shake up if one of these drivers in the red right now could go out and win today. So we got a lot to wrap up here on Racers Odds. When we come back, we'll go back over our best bets of the week, and we'll also take a look at where some true value may be a little bit farther down on this leaderboard. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Doug Rice of the Performance Racing Network. Whenever the PRN crew heads to Las Vegas, we always stay at the South Point Hotel and Casino. You know, it's our home away from home. The South Point features great restaurants, free parking, and they go out of their way to make race fans feel welcome. So when you make your plans to visit Vegas and attend the South Point 400, it just makes sense to book into the South Point. The South Point also offers fantastic room and race ticket packages. Make your reservations now at southpointcasino.com.
You didn't think he'd put down the microphone completely, did you?
Greetings from Las Vegas.
Well, neither did we. Hear legendary broadcaster Brent Musburger on the Vegas Stats and Information Network.
I never told my wife how much fun I had when I was staying here for about 3 weeks. Oh, it's terrible living in a casino. It was the greatest 3 weeks of my life. This is the only book in town that's open 24 hours.
There you go.
Make that bet around 4 o'clock in the morning.
You don't need a dress code. Pajamas are good.
Brent Musburger on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Sirius XM Channel 204.
Hey, travelers. Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right. Call. Because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip, or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first-class tickets.
800-989-0233. 800-989-0233. 800-989-0233. That's 800-989-0233.
We're back with more Racers Odds.
And welcome back once again, everyone, to Racers Odds. I'm John Roberts, along with the editor of Point Spread Weekly, Steve Makinen, and championship crew chief, Jeff Hammond, as we get closer and closer to green flag time. And in case 18 minutes now to go with Kyle Busch as your pole sitter. Now, you'll notice at the bottom of the screen we have the individual odds for drivers, and the star is next to the playoff drivers. And just to explain, we talked about how short a race this is, and it still goes down as a 500, but that 500 is for kilometers, and that's why we're going to take 312 circuits around this racetrack. So when you're looking to make your wagers, think about who unloaded fast. There's not going to be that much time, perhaps only a few pit stops for these crews and crew chiefs to adjust on these cars. So sometimes when you have a race like this, whoever starts up front can stay up front. That is, of course, if they stay out of traffic and also stay out of trouble along the way. So right now, we're going to recap our best bets of the week and give you the reasons why we like them. And for that, let's start out with Steve Makinen. Steve?
I'm going to stick with my Eric Almirola, minus 140 over William Byron. I actually wish I would have grabbed this one earlier in the week. It was minus 110, minus 110. However, Almirola's shown enough this weekend where I believe even more than I did back on Tuesday. He's 4 straight top 10s at Phoenix, usually finishes the year strong, had a great run at Texas, best driver rating of his career. He's on a roll. Stuart Haas looks pretty strong this weekend, and I just don't like what I've seen from Hendrick down the stretch here. I think better things to come in the future, but not this week, not next week, and I'm sticking with Almirola against Byron.
So Jeff Hammond, out on a limb once again this week. What do you say?
I say that I've done enough talking. I'm going to hear from the guys driving the car and let him tell you.
Yeah, I'd use the word cushion a little easily. I don't know. That's a pretty tough thing to say. It's 20 points is nice, but the fact that you're fourth in points just means that if one of those other 4 cars that are not in wins, you're first out. The good news is we're only a couple points from the 18 that's right in front of us. So we have to race him to really kind of control our destiny. Really winning the race is the best way to control your own destiny, obviously. But I like our position. It's better than being outside looking in. I'd rather be on the inside still trying to move forward. So, yeah, we'll have to kind of wait and see. I'm interested to see him practice, see the speed we have in our car. Excited to work on it, see what we can do, and try to score as many points as possible through each stage and have the best finish.
Folks, that's Joey Logano right there, and he's just explained to you the reason why I opted on him win the race today. I think he's got a great car. I think he's got a great attitude, and he's definitely got a great knee.
All right, so Joey Logano is going out there with the eyes on winning, although he is one of the drivers that can have a points scenario that gets him into the championship four. And, of course,
just remember, he's in.
Yeah.
He just needs to stay in.
He needs to stay in.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he is our defending champion as well. So got to take a look at that. Now,
I think is somebody below him winning this race. I mean, that's
boy.
He doesn't address that in his press conference here,
No,
but that's a
you're
massive
right,
concern to me.
Yep.
Yeah, and you gotta understand, guys. These guys are going to tell you that they're only going out there to win. They're not paying attention to where other drivers are on the racetrack. I got to throw the BS flag on that. They are looking exactly where other people are on the racetrack on this one. Now, when I was looking at a matchup to take this week, this is outside of playoff drivers, and I wouldn't have gained much by taking it earlier in the week because, of course, I probably wouldn't have taken it if I didn't know what kind of car that Matt DiBenedetto had to start this week off. He was top 5 in the first practice, top 10 in the second practice, and found himself in one of those practices second on the chart when it comes to consecutive 10-lap average. So I really like the matchup between himself and Ryan Newman as being my best bet of the week here. Although I got to give up 160 to make a buck back, the odds to win on these guys at minus 160, plus 140, and the average finish there, although it doesn't tell you exactly what's going on right now because of Ryan Newman's experience at the racetrack and all the starts that he's had, I just feel like in this case, Matt DiBenedetto is the better driver in this situation.
You never touched on how many starts he will have as they take the green flag today. This will be his 35th.
35th. Yeah,
35th race here
34th
at
for those
Phoenix.
other guys, for Jeff Gordon and Ryan and Mark Martin. So, of course, that is a tremendous amount of experience, but things certainly have changed. Now, let's talk about another thing that has changed recently. The start-finish line has changed at this racetrack. Years ago, the banking at the racetrack has changed, and one of the guys that has adapted the best to that, of course, is Kevin Harvick. Now, he had success early on at a different racetrack, but then again, Kevin Harvick, guys, I just don't think Kevin Harvick is getting the proper amount of respect this time because it's like what Jeff Hammond, Steve, alluded to earlier, is that he's still, they still want to win this dang thing, even though there's other things on their minds.
I agree wholeheartedly. The closer certainly closed last week. He's certainly capable of closing today. Number 2 on my simulation. Certainly got a good chance to win. He's not getting the respect. I agree exactly with what you said there.
Yeah, and also talking about adaptability, our Steve Makinen is adapting to the program by doing it for the first time from the back of the car. Steve, you're the man. That's adapting.
Thank you. I was actually out seeing my son here in his first college basketball game.
Oh, nice.
And so on my way home, and I actually lost track of time. Unfortunately,
Understand, man. Hey.
Sorry if it caused any
Not
issues
at all.
to the show, but hopefully it went over well.
It's adapting, Stephen. Thank you very much, as always, for great insight. And we're going to see how that simulation comes out. Looks pretty good in terms of what has happened so far this weekend. So as Steve goes off, Jeff Hammond, again, Kevin Harvick's a guy to look at. There's something about the odds makers that they really love when it comes to Denny Hamlin. Kyle Busch is your pole sitter. Man, what a lot to consider today.
There's a lot to consider today, and I think when you got to go back to one of the things that Steve said about his simulation, do not rule out Chase Elliott. He does have an opportunity here today through his practices and qualifying and everything like that to pull a rabbit out of his hat one more time because that's what it's going to take. He can't point his way in, folks. He can win every stage there is, but unless he takes that checkered flag first, he will not be in Homestead.
There was pressure on Chase Elliott to run well at the other elimination races. Of course, the Roval, then at Kansas. He rose to the occasion in those, but in this case, this is a win or nothing scenario for Chase Elliott. So, again, some tremendous amount of value there with Chase Elliott opened up at 12-1 and now finds himself at 14-1 when it comes to the odds to win the race. Now, odds to win the championship Right now, Chase Elliott sits as a long shot, but again, stranger things have certainly happened over the course of determining what is the longest season in professional sports to get down to the champion, and that is his championship 4 as well. Thanks to the editor of Point Spread Weekly, Steve Makinen, championship crew chief Jeff Hammond. We appreciate all you for coming along for the ride. Got one more edition of Racers Odds coming your way. You can catch it on PRN, VSiN, YouTube, SiriusXM, NASCAR.com, just to name a few, and we're here to give you the information you need. So long, and best of luck.
This has been Racers Odds, a presentation of TRN, the Performance Racing Network.